Good evening, everybody. How are we all doing? And welcome back to Division 2, Season 1 of Lightspeed Racing F1. It's going to be an interesting race around France in the wet this evening, as decided by the weather forecast based in real life. How is everyone doing on this fine Monday evening? As we are looking to go live in about 18 seconds. So what we'll do first is we will run through the current drivers' standings for you. So we've got joint at the top now between Ian, Beale and Sylvester. Sylvester definitely will be looking to stretch that gap again after missing out on China last week, with Ian Beale picking up a lot of points. We've then got Dan in third place. We've got Sparky Man, who for me has been one of the most consistent drivers this season. He's been very, very impressive along with his Ferrari teammate. Then we've got Mr. Camus down in P5. A driver who will be joining us, I believe, halfway through qualifying. So what can he do if he has got enough time to set a couple of laps? We've got Bakerman in the Haas in P6. We've got Wilhelm in P7, who is missing tonight. So he will be losing out some big points compared to the drivers around him. Another couple of drivers missing is Anthony Joy and Trim Tabs. Then we've got the new head of admin. Just want to say a congratulations to Fat Picasso on getting that role. I know he is delighted with it, and there's a lot of plans in motion moving forward with Lightspeed Racing Formula 1. We've then got Callum in P11, Raz out in P12. We've got John Boy, a driver who I know is gutted about missing tonight, but he is having a lot of problems with his PlayStation, so hopefully he can get that sorted, ready for the next couple of weeks of racing. We've then got Nico Hulkenberg, also known as Sam Ross, another driver who will be joining us halfway through the qualifying session. Hopefully he can show us really what he's about. We've then got Crispy Chicken coming in P15. We've got Pekka in P16. We've got the RB Racing in P17. All Honda Man rounding out the Americans in P18, and we've got Kizzy 2 Dizzy and Trucker rounding out the pack in P19 and P20. And then on to the constructors standings. Ferrari, as I said, the consistency has been key for these boys, with a massive advantage at the top with 131 points. We've then got the McLaren boys of Sylvester and John Boy in P2, Bakerman and Kizzy 2 Dizzy. It's quite a relatively new partnership, these two, so hopefully they can get that chemistry working together and get some good points on the board. The Mercedes boys are next, then followed by the Red Bull of Trim Tabs and Mr. Camus. Then we've got the Williams boys in P6, the AlphaTauri boys in P7, the Alpine boys coming out in P8, the Alfa Romeo in P9, and finally Aston Martin down in P10 with just 11 points. And as you can also see there, last week's podiums was Bakerman taking the top spot, with Joe Cham, who was a reserve driver, finishing P2, and also Ian Beale in P3. So it's going to be interesting to see who does what this evening, to be fair. It's going to be very tough. I know there's a lot of drivers who are nervous about the wet weather here. A lot of them sort of scarpering for setups just before the race started. But it's going to be very, very interesting to see what we've got here. So we've got most of them on an outlap. Actually, it's split 50-50 who's going out early and who's not. But let's get the... Yeah, everyone's on the inters. Let's have a quick look here. So looking at this, we've got All Honda Man will most likely be the first driver across the line, but he has invalidated. So it'll be interesting to see if he's cut the chicane fully. As if he has, there will be words had, as that is not allowed on any outlaps. As he rounds the final corner and is just starting his lap here, so we will stay on board with him and just see what benchmark he can put down for the rest of the boys to aim at this evening. Because a little bit wide through turn 1, and then just sort of half cuts turn 2, so there's a lot of time for him to take out on that. Oh, as he goes very deep As you see, the Haas behind him, I believe, on an outlap, just completely misses it. And oh, that's a big snap there. That is a lot of time lost there as he does round the corners, ready to get on the long straight. Now, has he gone for full sort of top speed? It's going to be interesting to see the approach that these drivers take. Will they just try and maximize that top speed, as there is a lot of straight on Paul Ricard, but he's just very careful through the chicane, just keeps it on the track nice. I feel like the next couple of corners are probably the most vital in the wet here. Very easy to go wrong. Yeah, just a slight let off just to keep it on the track. No need to really sort of risk anything on your first lap. Just get a lap on the board, and then the next couple is where you can really put the foot down and go for glory. Seems very, very smooth through sector 3, but how much will the first couple of sectors hinder his time in comparison to where he would like to be in the end? And as we come down the start-finish straight, it's going to be interesting to see. And he goes with a 1:45.4. That's definitely going to be beatable, you would like to think. As Raz is just rounding the final corner on his lap, as we have got the two Mercedes boys here. Whether or not they've been giving each other a slipstream down the straight just to help each other out, but this looks like he's going to go pole by a, wow, 1:41.2 for Dan, who, a Sparky Man's gone for a 1:40.5. Yeah, as you can see, all Honda Man really out of sync there based on his first lap performance. But are we going to see? It's going to be interesting to see what if these Mercedes boys work together, as it looks like Dan is backing himself off just to give the slipstream to Chris down the straight, as Sylvester comes across the line in a 1:39.7. That is a very, very respectable time in the wet round here. Yeah, you can see the Mercedes boys working perfectly together here. Nicely moved out the way there from Dan. It's going to be interesting to see, can Chris keep it hooked up for the rest of the lap? Yeah, very nicely done through the chicane there. As we've got Callum Banditcamp has invalidated his time, so he will most definitely be going again. As also Rasta Mole looks a bit slow on his time. Surprising, some of these drivers are very, very slow on their drive. I think Kizzy 2 Dizzy is the next one who will come across the line with a time in mind. Yeah, and he goes P4 with a 1:42.3. So a lot of time to gain for some of these boys. They'll definitely be looking to sort of push that a little bit harder, take a few more risks going into the next few laps of qualifying, as Fat Picasso is now coming across the line, and it is a 1:41.2. So he just pips his teammate on the battle of the slipstreams. It's good to see that these boys are working so well together, known each other for a very long time, so the chemistry in the team is definitely flowing. Hopefully they can keep it up in the race pace. I know for a fact that France is definitely a preferred track of Fat Picasso. Having raced with him for many years, this was always a favourite of his, and he's always got a lot of pace around it. So it's going to definitely be interesting. Can he push those top boys? Obviously, Sylvester does have a lot of pace at the top, as we can see by the difference in the lap times. We've got a few of the other drivers also coming back round for another lap, as Kizzy 2 Dizzy stopped off the track. Yeah, just letting the drivers through. Lovely done there from Kizzy. As Callum Banditcamp is coming round the final corner and down the home straight. It's looking like he's going to go sort of P3, yeah, with a 41 dead near enough. He'll be very, very happy with that time for his first true sort of flying lap. as Rastamol Pitill's back into the pit after doing a 156.5. That is not ideal for him. As we still have some drivers, as Mr. Trucker, one of the drivers that I mentioned who has been struggling for setups for the last few hours, just trying to get the right one dialed in with a bit of help from the other drivers, just sort of mucking together, because I think it's one of them that a lot of them are going to struggle. And my piece of advice for all of you boys is, don't go crazy into turn one. Please, whatever you do, you don't need to go crazy into it. You should be absolutely fine with it. As long as you take it calm, you'll be alright. Yeah, it's a tough one, Scott. It is a tough one. It would have been good to have you here tonight. Obviously, you and Sparky Man have showed a lot of pace, a lot of good teamwork between you. And it's always good to see Ian Beale's name all over the track. Do you know what I mean? It's very good. But hopefully, fingers crossed, you'll be racing on Thursday in Division 1. So you will get your chance to show everyone what you can do around France. As Trucker rounds the final corner, foot flat to the floor. Doesn't look the best of laps, but P6, yeah, sort of steady enough, considering he's really struggled to finish races in the ones he's taken part in this season. So he'll be looking to get some good points on the board. Obviously, with only the 11 drivers in currently, they will be fighting to be that one driver who doesn't get the point. There was a few of them in the voice chat previously discussing who they think may crash first, but I'm hoping for the viewers and for my own sanity that none of them crash and we receive no safety cars as well. That would be the ideal scenario, but it'll be interesting to see if that is the case, as Dan is just on his outlap, and yeah, you can see Fab Casso going very, very slowly. Gonna give his teammate a bit of a tow. Yeah, he's just gonna tuck back out. The Mercedes boys are working perfectly, and if I'm some of these other drivers and I'm seeing this, you've got to be in a. This is why it pays to be in a voice chat with your teammate, because we've got the Alphas. Sorry, the Alpines, the Aston Martins, and the Alfa Romeos in here, all racing, and the Mercedes boys are the only ones in a voice chat together. But it's going to be interesting to see as what can RB do. He looked a little bit too over the curb there, but hopefully it hasn't taken too much time out of him, as Dan is currently just over 2/10 up. So if he can just creep a little bit more time out, that'll put him P3 on the board. So he's definitely going to be looking to keep pushing in Sector 3 as, yep, perfect. Nico Hulkenberg, also known as Sam Ross, is now in the session. Hopefully he can get a good lap in, as Dan is now, if he keeps on at his current pace, will be P3 come the end of this lap. As we have got, Raz was facing the wrong way and is now invisible. Oh no, there he is, just popped back on the screen. What will Dan's time be as he comes across the line? Goes into P3, like we said, with a 140.9. So still a long way off Sylvester out front, but that's definitely some improvement he'll be looking for. And if we look, Dan is going to have to get a wriggle on because his teammate is coming. And his teammate is a little bit too close, in my opinion. But it's good to see some of the boys moving out of the way here. Dan needs to be right on it. Otherwise, yeah, they are very close together, these Mercedes boys, working together like a dream. And he is towing Chris along. beautifully here. But Chris is a 10th down at the end of Sector 1. What will he be at the end of the second sector split? Yeah, he's getting a beautiful toe from the Alpine there as well, as he's 2/1000ths over. But can he make up that time in the final sector? As we've also got Callum Banditcamp is just over a 10th up through this first sector split. Another one who would love to be getting a toe from his teammate. What will his second sector split be looking like as he comes over the line? Just over half a 10th up. So as it stands, he will sit just behind Dan. But there may also be some time to take out in Sector 3. It's going to be interesting to see as Fabcasso loses all of that time. Teamwork makes the dream work. Yes, exactly, Jordan. Teamwork does make the dream work. Oh, Chris. That is caught in 4K. You are not allowed to do that, my friend. If he does what I think he's going to do, he is going to be in a little bit of trouble. Oh, Chris. I don't want to have to say it, Chris, but there may be a meeting about this, because that's not allowed. As Trucker is just starting his second flying lap. Let's have a look and see what his first sector split time will be. He's a little bit tight to the corner there. That's not... Okay, he's 2/100ths up, but that's not going to be the entry he's going to be looking for. As we got Raz coming across the line. Stays P7, but he has a 4/10 improvement, so you'd like to think if he can get round once more, just get that battery recharged, he should be all good to go. Some of these drivers definitely are going to be in a lot of trouble when they come in. As Trucker is a 10th up, what can Trucker do in this last sector? It's looking like none of the Mercedes boys are coming back out, which is very surprising. Very, very surprising. They must be very happy with where they are, as Mr. Camus is now in as well. Perfect. So unfortunately, we will not get to see a lap from Mr. Camus. But he will be here for the race, which is always brilliant to see. As there's a slight improvement for Trucker, and he does overtake his teammate. And this is an interesting one from Dan. If I've looked at the times correctly, Dan, you don't have enough time to get round. No, Camus, forecast is dry for Division 1. Yeah, for Division 1. Division 2 is wet, or enters conditions. Let's go on. Poor Sparky, man. That is not the line I would take either, but still easily into P2, so it's looking like Callum won't improve. Dan will not get back round. Dan has just cut the chicane as well, so drivers, please, if you are watching, do not cut the track. If you've left yourself not enough time, that is unfortunately on your fault, as Raz has retired from the session. Happy with his time, happy P7. And Dan, you've cut all of that track for no reason whatsoever, so fantastic. It's going to be interesting to see, is Trucker going to improve at all? He comes across the line. No. Who is that? Sam Ross. Sam Ross cut the last corner. As let's have a look and see what Sparky Man. Well, Sparky Man is definitely down on his time. As Rastamol will improve, but not by a lot, to be fair. Not really to put any pressure on anyone, as RB is also 4/10 down, and Sylvester, yeah, off his time as well. So this will be your final standings going into the race. It's going to be interesting to see, will we get 1 stops, 2 stops? What are people going to do? Unfortunately, Camus, yeah, unfortunately we cannot sort that for you. There we have it, people. So, Sylvester taking it by 8/10. He is going to be looking to put the pressure on early from the front and try and get away from these boys, especially with no DRS available in the race as well. He is going to be very, very tough to beat coming into this race this evening. But what we also know about Sparky Man, he is very, very consistent. Also, as we do know, there is no 5-minute break. So as soon as the drivers are ready to go, then we will be straight off. So we will wait to hear the beep, and then we will look for the 5 red lights. Here we go, as we have got 5 red lights. And away we go here, as it's a fantastic start from Sylvester just to get away from Sparky Man, as we've got all sorts of moves at the back of the grid. But it's going to be very interesting to see, is everyone going to take it smoothly? Oh no, as we've got Razout is round. Razout is facing the wrong way currently and is missing an end plate. Just the traction seemed to let him down when he needed it the most. But we have got Mr. Camus has overtaken all Honda Man to go up into P9 after he's had missed qualifying, as RB Racing is all over the shop here. He needs to keep his car on the track as much as possible, otherwise he is going to drop out of the final points position. But let's get... So as we can see, the position changes. Dan overtakes Callum Bandit Camp to take the final podium position. Currently, Sam Ross up 1 position, as is Kizzy, and Mr. Camus, the biggest gainer here, up 4 positions, with Razout losing out the most with 6 positions and being 6.5 seconds off the back. So it's going to be very interesting to see what can these drivers do to try and close the gap on the car in front of them without that DRS that they are normally getting from each other. as we probably need to get off with Sylvester there because we can currently see how much battery he has left. So we will get off him and we'll be on Sparky Man, who is very close and may look to get a move done here. Or will he try and keep the battery for the long straight, as Dan is also closing the gap on them a little bit. Callum Bandit Camp seems to have lost a little bit of pace in behind. He is now a second and a half off the back, and he is under attack from Fat Picasso here, who will definitely be looking to gain some more positions and try and push onto the back of his teammate as fast as he can. But as we see here, Sparky Man is still very, very close on the back of Sylvester, as Sylvester goes a little bit wide, as does Dan, taking a slightly wider line through there, as well as Fat Picasso and Trucker. And Fat Picasso is under attack here from Trucker. Ooh, bit of double movement there, but hopefully they both make it nicely into the chicane. With Fat Picasso just managing to keep Trucker behind, but how long can he keep him behind for is really the question. So as we see, Sparky Man is still putting the pressure on Sylvester up at the front, with Dan dropping just a little bit off now, but seems to have taken that corner beautifully and took nearly half a second out of them. As we have got a yellow flag, and it does look like Razout has DNF'd, and it is the first safety car of the evening. Tony Mina, eat your heart out. So the drivers, after 2 laps, we've got a safety car, which is never ideal, but looking again, no one has changed any sort of positions. They're very much settled into the groove, but it is also going to bring those back runners who have had not the best of starts back onto the front pack, and hopefully they can try and make some moves and get things done. But as it stands, we've got Mr. Sylvester gaining a 25-point lead at the top of the standings now. As we said earlier, Mr. Ian Beale is not racing this evening. But also to the boys that are in the chat, I would like to say, on the restart, please be cautious. Sylvester, I know you can hear me. Just keep a constant speed, no brake checking, just keep it steady. Boys in behind, we don't want any Lance Stroll moments. Let's keep it simple and let's get racing again. Hopefully the safety car will be in this lap, but knowing this game, we will be going round once again, I am sure. Find out shortly if the safety car is in. It doesn't look like it is, so we will be going round under the safety car again. But whilst we are here, I'd like to let you guys know we will be starting a new series on Assetto Corsa Competizione, starting this Wednesday, I believe it is. And then we'll also have Division 1 of the Lightspeed Racing F1 League. Season 3 will be coming to you at 9 PM on Thursday as well. A lot of good drivers. It's getting faster and faster as the weeks go on. It's very, very exciting to be a part of. I'm finding myself, I'm having to put a lot more practice in just to be able to keep up with some of the drivers at the front, because they are exceptionally fast. And hopefully going into next season, we'll continue to keep bringing better drivers in and keep pushing our way through to really make a standpoint of why we have got such a fantastic F1 racing community in Lightspeed racing. But also, as we are going round under the safety car, I would also like to say a massive thank you to Mr. Pies. He is the one, as we've got a retirement, it looks like Trucker has hit the wall. Trucker has crashed under the safety car. No idea how that's happened. Trucker, if you can hear me, please do jump in the chat and let us know. But as I was saying, a massive thank you to Pies, who has left us now. He was formerly head admin in the Formula 1 side of things, and I think everyone would be in agreement of he has helped this grow and sort of perform to the level it has after joining the league. I believe it was last season, and he will be very much missed in the community and also on track. I've had the pleasure of racing with him for the last couple of years, and he has been a great part, and he brought up a good number of these races, even here and on a Thursday, into the league. So hopefully we'll see him back on track soon. So we are looking now with the final 11 drivers. Hopefully we can finish with 11 drivers. No more safety cars. Sylvester looks like he's doing a very good job at just keeping that steady pace, as we do see some cars weaving in behind, just trying to get that little bit of temperature in the tyres without trying to wear them out too much. But it's going to get very congested coming into the final corner, as Sylvester looks like he's gone early. As he slows back down, yeah, Sylvester's gone. But it's good to see the drivers in a good single file, as Fat Picasso has been caught napping here in P5. He's a second and a half off the back of Callum Bandit Camp, and he's straight under attack from Sam Ross and also Kizzy to Dizzy. As looking slightly further back, we've also got RB Racing is a little bit off the back of Mr. Camus, with the two Astons rounding out the back of the grid this evening. As Sylvester is starting to stretch his legs now. He's a second up the road from Sparky Man. But what can Sparky Man do in response to this? Can he make any sort of moves to try and push on to the back of Sylvester? As it also looks like Dan's getting a bit close, as we do have a yellow flag, and there is an Aston Martin. It seems to be the same corner again and again. A lot of drivers are making mistakes, as we've also got Sam Ross has lost a couple of positions there to Kizzy, to Dizzy and Mr. Camus. So he'll be looking to get back past them as soon as he possibly can. But Mr. Camus here, after starting at the back of the grid, is now up into P7. Can he get himself through this grid a little bit more and hopefully try and push for a podium position? But those boys in the top three have really sort of pushed on now, and Callum Bandit Camp is sort of just managing to close that gap down a little bit and pull clear of Fat Picasso in P5, who again is still under attack from Kizzy to Dizzy here. As we have got another yellow flag, as Rasta Mole is playing Drift Simulator by the looks of it. Mr. Rasta Mole, if you can hear me, put your traction back on. That's the best advice I could give you tonight. Just always, there's a little bit of contact there between Kizzy to Dizzy and Mr. Camus, and Mr. Camus just has to remain settled in behind. But they have dropped badly off the back of Fat Picasso, and they're now under attack again from Sam Ross, who has come back out of nowhere. So we will keep on board with this little battle of the 3 for P6. As Mr. Camus looks like he might be using a little bit of battery here, as well as Sam Ross. As Sam Ross looks to make the move, we might be going 3 wide here into the chicane. but Mr. Camus wisely just backs out of it and lets Sam Ross go, and he will keep behind him ready to make an attack up onto the long right-hander. But this has really allowed Fat Picasso to pull well clear of these boys. Yeah, he's nearly a 3.5 second gap as they are battling here, as Mr. Camus is going for the... Oh, that was nicely kept. Oh, oh no. Oh no, as we've got a virtual safety car, as Mr. Camus was round and got clattered by RB Racing, but there was nothing RB Racing could do there. He was simply just a sitting duck. He was never going to be able to stop in time for that, so he will most likely be looking to peel off into the pits. As also Sam Ross has peeled into the pits as well. It's going to be interesting to see, is this for a wing change, or is he just trying to put a new set of tyres on his car? We will stick on board and see. Yeah, it's just on for a new set of tyres. As if we look at the tyres now, yeah, RB Racing getting that wing changed as well, which is good, and hopefully these boys can stick on it. But I'm so glad it's not a normal safety car, so we can manage to keep some sort of racing going without having to sit behind the safety car for 2 extra laps, which definitely would not have been ideal. But it seems a very long virtual safety car here. And it looks like Sparky Man has took a little bit of time out of Sylvester here. So as Sylvester just allowing his Delta to get up a little bit. But we are back under green flag conditions here. And as we settle back down into it, so we have Sylvester out front, just under a second ahead of Sparky Man in P2. Dan is holding that final podium position in P3, with Callum Banditcamp hot on his tail in P4. As we have got yet another yellow flag, as Rastamol is round on the straight again, but he is back moving. I think some of the boys might be trialling no traction tonight. My honest opinion, not the best weather conditions to be trialling it. But we have got Sparky Man is now half a second, or just over now, off the back of Sylvester. Still trying to keep that pressure on him out front. He's trying to make Sylvester work for this victory here tonight. But as we can see here, Dan has also pulled a little bit of a gap on Callum Banditcamp. And also Fat Picasso was crept back under 3 seconds from Callum Banditcamp. So be very interesting to see, can he keep making little bits of inroads, just sort of chisel away at him, and then hope to sort of put that pressure on towards the final sort of laps. But it's sort of hovering around that 3 and a bit second mark. So it's going to be very interesting. He'll need to put in some seriously fast laps to get onto the back of Callum again. But they seem to have settled nicely into a rhythm now, with the main gap, the main sort of battles. You're probably looking from P1 to P4 realistically. You can maybe throw P5 in, depends on how bad a mistake one of the drivers could make. But other than that, we are very, very spread out here towards the back of the grid. So as we can see here, Sylvester has just started to pull back away from Sparky Man. It does seem like he may have slightly higher wings than Sparky Man. Whether or not that is really coming into play here, Sparky Man seems to really not be able to handle the true speed that Sylvester does have. I will also say Sylvester will be also racing in Division 1 in the next coming races. So it's going to be interesting to see, can he get onto the back of him again. and just put that little bit of pressure on? Or is he now just going to sort of settle for second place and just try and hold that gap to Dan in behind him? Yeah, the boys are really starting to spread out now. But hopefully we should be seeing a few pit stops in the coming laps. You would imagine some of these boys will be trying to go earlier, get that undercut, get back in the sort of race with the boys in front of them, and hope to put some pressure on. But will those extra lap old tyres start to hinder them towards the end of the race? It's going to be a fascinating watch to see who will take the win, but you'd have to say Sylvester will be the favourite to take the win. Very consistent, very good in my opinion. Some may say too good for Division 2, but we'll see just how good he is when he is put with the big boys on Thursday around France again, but it will also be in the dry. Yeah, the boys really have just settled into a groove now. No one really putting any massive pressure on anybody. You would look at Fat Picasso is back under 3 seconds to Callum Bandit Camp, so he is pushing that little bit just to try and close that gap on him. It seems to be those couple of corners every lap, as we have got a yellow flag, and I'm going to guess it's Rastamol round again. No, he seems to be driving, whether or not he's just recovered from a spin or something, as he is now 25 seconds off the back of RB Racing. He was 13 seconds off the back of Sam Ross. These boys really have stretched out the gap now, as Sylvester is now 2.6 seconds up the road from Sparky Man. Back to 2.9 seconds now, so it doesn't look like he's making sort of too much inroads into that. So will he pit that lap or two early just to try and gain that advantage on him? I think the Mercedes boys will definitely be having a discussion with each other on what lap realistically they think they should pit on. My guess is you're probably looking at about sort of lap 12, lap 13 would be the ones you'd want to go on if you are looking to get that bit of an undercut. But as we have got a yellow flag again, and Rastamol is going slowly, as also Fat Picasso picks up the first 3-second penalty of this evening, and he looks like he may have just got another track limit warning there, so that is not ideal, but he does have a big enough gap behind him that 3-second penalty should not hinder him too much, as he goes a little bit wide again. Maybe his tyres are starting to go off. It's going to be interesting to see how can he keep his car on the track and still make those inroads, as it is now 2.6 seconds to Callum Bandit Camp, but Callum Bandit Camp basically has 5.5 seconds to play with that penalty for Fat Picasso. But what we can see here is these front two have really pulled away from the rest of the pack as well now, with Dan being 5.5 seconds off the back of them. It's going to be a tough ask for any of these to catch on to the back of Sparky Man or Sylvester. As Sparky Man looks to have taken, a tenth or two out of Sylvester. He'll look to just try and chip away again. Whether or not his tyres are starting to come back to him a little bit, but Sylvester still looks in full control here. Sparky Man is just struggling to get the traction down around this right-hander here. So he's another one who's running the no traction tonight. It's something that I haven't quite mastered yet. It is something that is looking to come in the next few weeks, but the rain is definitely not where I would be doing it. As we got Rastamol is now 37 seconds and is round again. That was perfect timing. Sam Ross also picks up a 3-second time penalty as Rastamol is still struggling to get the traction down here. Sylvester has stretched his legs clear again. Back up over 3 seconds to Sparky Man. It's going to be interesting to see when will the first of these boys jump in the box to try and get that undercut on the cars around them. With the gaps getting bigger and bigger, you would like to think it would be early. Otherwise, there's not really that much you can do. But I think the only sort of car that's making any moves here is Fat Picasso, is gaining that little bit of time back on Callum Bandit Camp. But Callum Bandit Camp just seems to have the advantage on him in the last few corners of Sector 3. As Sparky Man is dropping to 2.4, and then it just seems to fly back up around this long right-hander. Whether or not Sylvester might be running a bit of traction or whether he's just getting better traction on it remains to be seen. He's now pushed over the 3-second mark. If you're Sparky Man, you have to jump in the box this lap to try and get that undercut. As in my opinion, these tyres will not go to the end. So you definitely have to get in early. But what can Sparky Man do if he does undercut him? He's going to have a fast outlap. But that is not the line you want to be taking when you're trying to close down. As it looks like Sylvester has jumped into the pits now and manages to get the car stopped in time. As Sparky Man stays out for that a little bit longer, maybe trying to go for an overcut, just hoping it works, as Dan picks up the first 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, as Callum Bandit Camp is all slowed down, with Fat Picasso staying out for another lap just to try and get the fresher tyres towards the end of the race. Kizzy is looking like he's coming into the box as well now. Slowed down very nicely indeed. All Honda Man looks like he is staying out for another lap. Sam Ross and RB Racing will most certainly be staying out on 6-lap old tyres. And then Rastamol is just enjoying himself, I think, tonight. Having a bit of fun in the wet. Picking up the last points position. So whilst the boys have pit, there is currently a change in the order with Sparky Man in P1 and Fat Picasso currently in P2, with Sylvester taking up P3 now, but on fresh tyres he will be closing the gap to the cars in front of him very, very quickly indeed. It's going to be interesting to see, will Sparky Man and Fat Picasso come in this lap along with All Honda Man, or are they going to try and stick it out that little bit more? But Sylvester has closed nearly a second on Fat Picasso in this lap alone, so you can see the difference in the tyres. Yeah, as Sparky Man does look to come into the box now, along with Rastamol just in front of him actually. Will Fat Picasso jump into the pits as well, as we have a yellow flag in Sector 3, and it is the mastermind of All Honda Man, who is really struggling now on these tyres, and Sam Ross had to swerve off the track to avoid the car there, but Fat Picasso does jump into the box. He doesn't pick up a penalty, which is brilliant to see. As will he come out in front of Callum Banditcamp? That remains to be seen. It doesn't look like he will, but he certainly won't be too far off the back. You wouldn't have thought, as we have got a yellow flag again, and it is Rasta Mold. Once again, going a little bit slow as Honda Man picks up a 5-second penalty for speeding in that pit lane. That is not what he wants after getting that spin, as Kizzy is now overtaking him, and RB Racing has also flown past at the same time. But what we've also got is Dan is a lot closer to Sparky Man now. He's only a second and a half off the back of him. But Sparky Man does have the 1 lap tyre advantage, which may come to help him at the end of the race. As we have got Sparky Man decided to take an alternative line through this game, one that I haven't seen before, but does pick up a 3-second penalty for corner cutting as well. If we look at the penalties, obviously we have got 3 of the drivers in Sparky Man, Fat Picasso and Sam Ross, all on 3 seconds of penalties, and the 2 boys speeding in the pit lane were Dan and also Honda Man, picking up 5-second penalties each. But Sylvester here is now 8 seconds ahead of Sparky Man. Barring a big mistake, he will have this race wrapped up. As Sylvester does put in another fastest lap here, so he's looking to get maximum points here in France this evening. But Dan looks to be creeping just that ever bit closer to Sparky Man. He seems to be taking a bit of time out, but he's just lost all the time he's gained going into that chicane and through the right hand corners. But as we've seen previously, Sparky Man is not the fastest round the long right hander leading onto the straight, so it's going to be interesting to see, can Dan keep chipping away at that advantage. But also what we can see is Sam Ross is now closing in on the 3-second. Sorry, Kizzy to Dizzy is just about to go under the 3-second mark on Sam Ross, and will look to take P6 through the penalties, as he's taken a lot of time out leading on to the straight here. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how much will these penalties come into effect. If Kizzy can get past Sam Ross, he may be able to try and push onto the back of Fat Picasso, but that 10-second gap is a big ask. But he's certainly trying his hardest here. Yeah, he's now under a second, or he's just tipped back over behind Sam Ross. Sam Ross looks like he's struggling now. As we can see, there is a 7-lap difference in the tyres, so he will look to get that move done down this start-finish straight potentially, as Sam Ross really is struggling to keep that traction down. Oh, no. We don't defend like that, boys. Come on, please. That was a bit dangerous there from Sam Ross, sort of moving on, and he goes for the dive bomb. Oh, and there's a bit of contact, and it does cause Kizzy to Dizzy to pick up a 3-second time penalty as well. So we will stay on board with this battle, as I think it could get quite spicy, as we have seen from the last couple of corners. Kizzy is certainly going to look to go on the attack down the straight, as Sam Ross seems to be swerving a little bit to try and it's definitely going to be interesting to see what can Kizzy do to get past him with this sort of different approach to defending that we've not necessarily seen much in the league so far. But as we also see, Sparky Man has now pulled away from Dan again, as Kizzy does get the move done, but Sam Ross defends again, and there is contact yet again between these two boys. There is no love lost when it comes to gaining the position on track. As Sam Ross goes very wide, as Sylvester picks up a 3-second time penalty at the front. Obviously with that nearly 9-second gap, he will be absolutely okay with picking that penalty up, but he will try and keep that down as much as possible, because the last thing he wants is to pick up too many penalties and end up losing a position if Sparky Man can get his foot down. As Dan is now 2.5 seconds off the back of Sparky Man, it seems like the front two, as Sam Ross does pick up another 3-second time penalty, which is not ideal for him, as also Fat Picasso is now 4.2 seconds off the back of Callum Bandit Camp. It's going to be interesting to see, can any of these do anything to try and get back past the cars in front of them. Whether or not the boys are starting to catch Sylvester a little bit, Sparky Man has took about a second out of him. Is Sylvester starting to struggle a little bit? Obviously on 4-lap old tyres, but maybe he's just dropped his concentration levels just that little bit with picking up the penalty. And Sparky Man has also pulled nearly a second extra on Dan over the last sort of lap and a half. Is now pushing closer to 3.5 seconds the difference. Yeah, so as we can also see as well, Sam Ross is now 4 seconds off the back of Kizzy after having that brief little battle with some maybe questionable defending at times from the AlphaTauri driver, but Kizzy is now 19 seconds off the back of Fat Picasso. So it's going to be very, very interesting indeed to see what he can do to try and get any closer to Fat Picasso. Obviously both drivers have got 3 seconds of penalties, so it's very, very interesting indeed if he can make that difference. But you would like to think Fat Picasso, bar a serious mistake, should have a minimum of P5 wrapped up. But again, Dan seems to have dropped off that pace that little bit more. They've took another second out of him, Sparky Man and Sylvester have. And that 5-second penalty is not going to be good. But what can Callum Bandit Camp do in terms of trying to push onto the back of Dan? 10 seconds is a big old gap, but if he can half it, he could really, really put some pressure on Dan, and Dan might make a potential mistake. Who knows what might happen here? Here we go. So as Sylvester is coming through the chicane, it's still sat quite nicely. We've got a yellow flag here, and it does look like it is Rastamol getting out the way of the Haas coming through of Kizzy to Dizzy. Really sort of a torrid time here for Rastamol. I think he's just trying to finish the race, sort of guarantee himself that point. because he has struggled sort of from start to finish here in the race. 12 seconds down on his best time, so he is having an awful time of it. But Sylvester now stretching that lead back over 8 seconds, looking to keep that pressure on, trying to show the Division 1 drivers what is coming their way on Thursday. So we've also got Dan dropping off even more. Dan is now 5 seconds behind Sparky Man for P3, but still sat in a very, very strong position for picking up some good points here, as we've got yet another yellow flag, and my guess is it's Rastamol. Oh, and Rastamol, I've just caught him resetting to track. Oh, things go from bad to worse here for Rastamol. Please, if you can, box. How have you not boxed for a new wing? Baffles me, but if he wants to give it a go, we'll let him give it a go. But unfortunately, he will pick up a penalty for reset to track, as RB Racing has also picked up a 5-second penalty, as we have got a virtual safety car here. I can't see at all what the virtual safety car is for. It may have been due to Rastamol having a bit of a collision with the wall. But looking at it, Sylvester has pulled out 2.5 seconds here on Sparky Man. So did Sparky Man make a slight mistake? Or was he just miles over his delta? Yeah, as that time does come back down quite quickly. As we are back underway here, as RB Racing picks up a 3-second time penalty to now put it to 8 seconds. But realistically, it's not going to make much difference to any of the cars behind him, as Rastamol is nearly 2 minutes behind the rest of the pack. But what we have seen is both Sam Ross and RB Racing with a brand new set of intermediate tyres being put on, and they're going to try and put that pressure on all Honda Man if they can get close enough to the back of him. We could be in for a nice little battle here between the AlphaTauri and the Alpine driver. And also, Callum Banditcamp has took a 1.5 seconds out of Dan since the safety car restart. So maybe Dan trying to be that little bit too cautious, as Rastamol does pick up a 3-second time penalty here. And stopped in the pit lane. I have no idea what's going on here. Is he going to continue? Is he going to retire? We will find out shortly. And at least, is he going to get his wing changed? That's the main thing. Yeah, it does look like they got a new wing for the front of the car, so they'll look to get that changed. And he'll just put some more laps down and enjoy his Monday by the looks of it. But as we got here, Sylvester managing to hold a 9-second gap to Sparky Man in P2. We've got Dan holding on to P3 as Fat Picasso picks up yet another penalty, but he is 24 seconds clear of Kizzy 2 Dizzy, so that will not bother him too much, as we have got a yellow flag, in sector 1, and it was Rastamol getting out the way of Sylvester, which is great to see. As all Honda Man has picked up another 3-second time penalty as well. So with Sam Ross and RB Racing both on brand new sets of intermediate tyres, can they push into that gap and potentially cause an upset with all Honda Man? He will need to be very, very careful from now on, otherwise he will be in trouble. And it looks like Callum Banditcamp is going to be the only driver so far to not pick up a single penalty. Obviously some of the drivers that would have been for pit lane infringements, but Callum keeping his slate very, very clean indeed. As Dan picks up yet another time penalty, Callum Bandit Camp will see that and he will start to really press on now. Can he just get that a little bit closer? Dan will not want to get any other warnings. Otherwise, he will be very, very much under pressure from Callum in the last couple of laps. But as we see here, Sam Ross has took nearly 2 seconds out of All Honda Man and is really trying to throw the gauntlet down and taking a 1.5 seconds out of RB Racing in the process as well. Sam Ross is really trying to put some qualifying style laps down. Yet again, taking another second out of All Honda Man since the last time I mentioned it. He's looking like he's going to gain that time and could potentially nick P7 from All Honda Man, but he will need to make sure he does not pick up any more penalties along the way. But as we can see from the map, the cars are very, very spread out now. So what it is looking like is we are looking at a top 3 finish with Sylvester, Spiky Man and Dan to the G. With Dan just eking that little bit more time out of Callum Bandit Camp. Now just touched over 12 seconds. What can Callum do in response to that? It would be interesting to see. But Sam Ross is now within 4 seconds of All Honda Man. He's a 1.5 seconds more is needed to try and make sure he does keep that P7 position. But he's looking like he could potentially be in trouble as Sylvester does start with 3 laps left to go, and we have got a yellow flag again. I'm guessing it was for Rastamol moving out of the way for Sparky Man, which is good to see. Sylvester just keeping it nice and steady. No need to really rush anything. He's got 11.5 seconds to play with here. He can just coast to the line if he really wants to. But as we see here, Dan is just trying to keep on the back of Rastamol here. This could be an interesting little race here. Obviously, Rastamol will be ghosted as he is the lapped car. But also Sam Ross now only 2.9 seconds behind All Honda Man. Can he just gain that extra second and he will pick up another couple of points here? As we've got Kizzy 2 Dizzy picks up another 3-second time penalty for track limit warnings. Again, another driver who should be very, very safe in his position, but a big crash. As no, Sam Ross has just pushed that little bit too hard and has now 9 seconds of penalty, so he does need to get past All Honda Man here. So what we have at the front is, on the penultimate lap, as he's just started, Sparky Man is now 12.5 seconds off the back of Sylvester. But they're both very, very comfortably ahead of Dan with Dan's extra penalties he does have. Callum Banditcamp is now looking like he's going to be under attack from Fat Picasso. Whether or not has he backed off just that little bit to have a bit of a race with someone, as he's had quite a lonely race in P4, to be honest. So what can Chris do to try and get past Callum Banditcamp? Obviously, pull in a 6-second gap. Even if he does get past, it will be very, very unlikely. But we've seen stranger things happen here in the F1 leagues. But also, Sam Ross is now 1.6 seconds behind. He will be absolutely fuming at the fact that he did pick up that extra 3-second time penalty. Now, within half a second is Fat Picasso. Takes a very wide line through the long right-hander there. But he's looking really racy on these tyres, as we have yet another yellow flag. And yet again, it is Rastamol getting out the way for the drivers, which is something we love to see. As Sam Ross does get past All Honda Man, as All Honda Man makes a mistake again. Sam Ross is now pulled clear and will hold P7 as it stands with his penalties. But Sparky Man picks up another 3-second time penalty. But as again is one of them where he should be very safe in his P2. Can Fat Picasso make any sort of moves just to try and get that little notch on track and get past Callum Banditcamp here? It doesn't look like he is close enough. But as we also have All Honda Man is pushing to get onto the back of Sam Ross here. But what we will do is go back on board with Sylvester. Missed China, lost out on some vital points in the championship, but has made the most of his championship rival Ian Beale not being in the race today, as he rounds the final corner and will come down the line to take maximum points here by a long margin of 12.5 seconds. As Sparky Man will look to come across the line in P2. It's been a fantastic drive from the front three boys, as Dan will round out the podium positions and finish P3. Callum Banditcamp still under pressure from Fat Picasso, but will hold P4 and will also be the only driver here tonight who does not pick up a penalty, as they're having a drag race to the line. And it looks like Fat Picasso just edged it at the line, but obviously does lose it due to the penalties, as we've got Kizzy, who will be next over the line in P6. And then Sam Ross will be in P7, as Kizzy takes a bit of an alternative line through the second to last corner. But he will just weave. I wouldn't weave too hard, otherwise you'll have no wheel left. But he is very, very safe here in P6, just having a bit of fun with it. And then we've got Sam Ross and All Honda Man. All Honda Man has backed off that a little bit on the last lap. And Sam Ross should pick up P7 here, barring a massive mistake, which he does. All Honda Man finishes in P8. And finally, Rastamol in P9. So as your final classification here in France for Division 2, we've got Sylvester taking maximum points. Sparky Man finishes in P2. Dan in P3. Callum Banditcamp finishing P4, Fat Picasso finishing in P5, Kizzy in P6, Sam Ross takes P7. All Honda Man is the better of the American drivers here tonight, taking P8. RB Racing does take P9, and Rasta Mole, 2 laps down, managed to finish the race. Fair play to him, takes the final points position, with Mr. Camus, Trucker and Raz all failing to finish the race. So as I said earlier, people, the next races will be on Assetto Corsa on Wednesday, and then if we are back here at France on Thursday for Division 1 of the Formula 1 series. That will be a race that will not want to be missed, with a lot of fast drivers willing to put it on the line and get their elbows out sometimes when maybe they don't need to, but it makes for interesting viewing in my opinion. But that is all from me. I hope you have all enjoyed, and until next time, we will see you later.